let's review what we have seen over the past, 5, almost 6 years now. The State of the Nation address that was delivered by President Ramaphosa back in 2018, outlining a number of things that he would like to do. Have they been done? We're joined now by Rebone Tau, political analyst and author in terms of that review. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this afternoon. So the President, ma'am, I beg your pardon, the President embarking on a self-appointed crusade under the theme Tuma Mina. As we review what we have seen, let's maybe start with the creation of this working group back in 2018. What does your scorecard tell you? Has it been established? Has there been some work done?
Good day and good day to the viewers at home. I think one must start by saying when we understand the concept Tuma Mina, it's a concept where you send someone and you expect them to come back and give a feedback of what they have done, and over the past 4 years, I can say the previous SONAs, President Ramaphosa has not really been accounting to citizens of this country, to say this is what we have been able to do. At every SONA, he just comes, nice speeches, we listen to him. But in terms of getting a sense, where are the challenges? And because this is not only his SONA, but it's for South Africans, and we all have to play a proactive a role in making sure that this country grows, moving forward, whether the economy, dealing with the issue of unemployment rate. Because, in 2018, he talks about, he's going to set up a youth working group, that will look at youth challenges. And we know that the unemployment rate for the youth is at the center. And the latest stats report, they have proven that we're sitting at 50% of youth unemployment rate. So President Ramaphosa no longer has time on his side. He really needs to come up with a program, with a SONA that has got clear plans and objectives and how he's going to implement some of these things. He talks about in this 2018 speech that we'll be meeting with local and provincial leaders to make sure that they deal with pressing issues around service delivery and so forth. And if you look at the 2021 local government elections, the poor turnout of those elections, local government was at the center. So it shows that from 2018, nothing much has been done, when it comes to service delivery at local government, issues of whether roads, water, electricity and so forth, which still becomes a problem. Even the issue of ESCOM that 5 years later was still dealing with the problem of ESCOM. We have load shedding now and then. So there's a lot of things that he promised, the president in 2018. And unfortunately, if we look back, and COVID can't be used as an excuse, that that's why we're here, because of COVID. We need a government that is innovative, a government that can move with the times and try and adjust, where there's a need for adjustment. And unfortunately, we are also looking at this year's SONA, which was very interesting that in last year's SONA, he even said nothing on foreign policy, which is a bit worrying, because you must remember that foreign policy is determined by your national interest. And even in South Africa right now, we don't know what is our national interest. What unites us as South Africans? These are some of the things that Ramaphosa, as the President of the Republic, needs to shape moving forward.
What is our national interest? On the issue of mining at the time in 2018, the President saying he calls on mining companies to work together with all stakeholders to ensure that mine accidents are dramatically reduced. Do you make comparisons or rather you note that there could be lessons that can be learned from the issue of Xolobeni?
Definitely, lessons can be learned from the issue of Xolobeni, because it's important that government, understands that when it's there, it's also representing the people, because the people give them a mandate. So we can't have a government, that just really does what it wants and undermines other stakeholders, because of probably having a different view. Because even if you want the economy to grow, because if you look at Xolobeni, you can have a mine there that will operate for 15 years. After that, what happens? But as the citizens of Xolobeni would prefer to have it as a tourist attraction, to show the landscape of the country in that regard, and so forth. And that can be something that is sustainable, that can be for generations to come, instead of having a short-term thing. So government needs to make sure that whatever that it does engage with stakeholders, even if the discussions can be difficult, and not dismiss everything that is said by those within the stakeholder forums.
You note that government continues to talk about economic recovery while the South African Revenue Services is hyper-focused on finding new means of taxing the indebted middle class. Firstly, what is the middle class? A widely held view saying there is no middle class in South Africa. Maybe I'd like to get your thought on that. Let's deal with that firstly, the so-called middle class.
I mean, the reality of the matter, indeed, we don't have a middle class in this country. People are living beyond their means. People are, by the second, the third, if you get paid on the 30th, already you are broke, People have got so many credit cards, so many loans. So, now that is not a middle class because it's indebted, it's living from hand to mouth. And when we look at the inequalities in this country, especially those who were less fortunate, in terms of playing a role in the economy before 1994, most South Africans, whether some have now characterized it as black tax, which I disagree is not black tax. As Africans, we're always taught, to assist at home with our extended family members and so forth. So most of the so-called middle class, which I say is independent middle class, also have got those responsibilities because of the inequalities and the economy is growing at a slow pace. So, and then unfortunately now with COVID, some, have lost their jobs. So these people are like breadwinners. Probably some of them were supporting like 5 households, assisting them on a monthly-to-monthly basis. So we are sitting in a serious crisis in terms of these inequalities, and unfortunately, the government or the ANC-led government wants to talk about an economic recovery plan. An economic recovery plan under this current economy that we're sitting with. And I think COVID, gave them an opportunity to restructure the economy, but they failed. You can't come up with an economic recovery plan under this economy that has not worked for South Africans for the past 27 years.
Let's take a look at expectations ahead of tomorrow. You believe that South Africa can actually afford the basic income grant?
No, absolutely. I mean, if we stop all the corruption, that continues to happen in this country, money be utilized, accordingly, there can be money that can be utilized for the basic income grant. I mean, look at how much money was wasted, let's say, for the past 20 years. Even let's just look at how much money was spent on the Zondo Commission, which is 1 billion, So there is money that is there in the state, but in the manner that is used, and especially with corruption, and corruption can't just be a mere slogan. We need to see action, so that people can be held accountable. It can't be that President Ramaphosa, in 2018, he was talking about this thing of corruption, and during the COVID pandemic, in the midst of COVID pandemic, you've got corruption that took place. This is so malicious. People when we're in the middle of a pandemic, and people are just thinking of stealing money from the state, nothing else, not about saving people's lives. It's a bit worrying. So for us to achieve the basic income grant, because it is not a new discussion that has been put on the table. We can go back as far as the era of the late Minister Zola Skoyen. Basic income grant was put on the table. And as long as there is the inequality in this country, there is a need for a basic income grant. Because there's been studies that have been made that for any young person, for example, who's looking for a job, in a month, some people spend 1,300 rand just submitting CVs, going to interviews. Where are they getting this money to do all these things? When you look at the inequality, the poverty that we live in this country, because you have a situation where from an 18-year-old to a 59-year-old is not allocated. And I'm not saying that just give the basic income grant, but also there's a need for a skill. We have what we call, for example, the National Youth Service. That National Youth Service can actually help to build people who can do plumbing, different things like fixing windows. The tenders that go to some of these business people can be used as cooperatives, to give the necessary skills to young people who can be given that opportunity to also play a role in the economy. So it's not about just giving the basic income grant, but it should go also with a skill on the other hand that they're given, so that they don't depend on the state for the rest of their lives.
Rebone, just maybe a closing thought from you. Have Batho been put bailey? The notion of Batho bailey, I think being established back in 1997 under the Mandela administration. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And in 2022, we're still sitting with some of, the founding principles of Batho Bele not being met. So have the people been put first?
Unfortunately, in my view, if you look at the civil servant, whether nurse, police, different departments, you've always hearing complaints, from fellow South African citizens, complaining about the services that is rendered, because it starts there with the service that is being rendered. And that's why even I'm arguing that the school of governance, must be in all provinces, councillors, at local government must go to that school, to understand, why are they there to serve, even junior government officials, because this school now is just being operating at a high level, but the people who must render the services to the fellow South Africans are not getting an opportunity to go to the National School of Government. So it's important that they go there and understand that their sole mandate, what is it there? Because as long as we continue to have challenges, in terms of whether the health sector, people that will go to Home Affairs and tell you sometimes how the service is bad, we don't need that. We need civil servants who are patriotic, So that part of it talks about also a civil servant that is patriotic, that will understand, their role in society.
Rebone Tau is a political analyst and author. Thank you very much, ma'am, for availing yourself this afternoon.